Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
All right, good. Hey, so we are on another episode of these podcasts. We're going to try to get back to a weekly thing now that summer's over and
Yeah,
we're
back
all
to the
back
pod.
in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
So
pod.
this, what we're going to do today with this is we're going to talk a little bit about failures. So that should be fun. I want to talk about, because I had this the other day. We were presenting for Kindred at their, oh man, what's that symposium called? Their charitable symposium. Anyways, all the charities that Kindred supports
Right.
are invited to come out. Not all of these, I should clarify. All the ones, they have a grant that applied to the grant and were granted, some money, apply and they show up. And so we went last year. It was really cool. Met some cool charities.
So specifically, this is in regards to the work that we do at Family Central, and we applied for a grant through that organization.
Yes. And this is why there's two of us here, because Josie would be irritated. She's like, you start halfway through a thought.
Well, distinctly separate from the church in the sense that the church did not apply for a grant
Yes.
from Kindred.
Yes.
It was the Family Central.
Sorry.
Yeah.
With Family Central. So we're there, and last year, again, really cool organizations, some really neat stuff, but everybody always presents the good. And so this year, I didn't realize it was alphabetical. And so I should have just put Family Central instead of the Family Central. But we were dead last. And so we're the last of, I think there was 15 presentations in a 2-hour span. And so by the time it got to me, like everybody had just been raving about what they've done. So I was like, I don't know. I think we need to be real. Here's some cases that we failed. Here's some people. And I just feel like we sometimes have to try to, because you're trying to present in a way that we're being successful.
Right.
And people like attending successful things. They like going to restaurants that are popular. They like, you know what I mean? So there's a part of that. And so I think as a church sometimes.
How do you think that landed?
Good. It's, I forgot to mention Kindred in it. So that was funny because everybody else was like, yeah, thank you, Kindred, and I'm like, but you guys know that we're thankful because we're here. So I don't feel like I need to give a big shout out to. So I think it landed well, and you can see it resonating because the work you do with people is exhausting work. And especially a lot of them that are fundraisers, you're endlessly getting rejected. And so like the one group that I ended up sitting at the table in the back, and it's super funny. So I'm not the most social person,
Which is
usually
hilarious.
at work.
Yeah.
I love social Saturday, whatever. So I sat in the back, and there's a couple girls there that definitely did not look like they wanted to chat. And I was like, perfect. This is the table for me. There's like 3 guys and like 40 girls in this thing. And so eventually I was like, listen, I'm not being rude. I'm just tired. We had a big weekend. I'm exhausted. I don't really want to chat, but what do you do? And so then they started chatting about the fact that they were fundraising for, I'm not going to remember that, but it was refugees. They worked with the first year that refugees came here through the government of Canada, and their job was fundraising. So then I was like, oh, okay, now I'm a little more awake. Now I'm intrigued. I'm like, so how do you do that in a culture where people are becoming more and more anti-immigration? And so it became really, really interesting listening to them and their approach, but it's exhausting. It's tiring. You're dealing with people and you're dealing with opinions and you're dealing with politics.
I would have been curious because we're also dealing with a culture where everywhere you go, people have their hand out asking for,
oh man,
would you like to, round up your total to the next dollar and that'll go to Ronald McDonald House, or do you want to donate to the local corner cupboard, or do you know what? And everywhere you go, people are asking for $1, $2. And it's like, I donate. You almost feel like in those settings you can't. It would have been curious to know what that statistic is looking like for them as fundraisers. Are they facing like a fatigue just from people giving? Like a giving fatigue. Like,
yep. I mean, everything has become political too, right? Like, now it's not that we're trying to help the refugees. It's political, but who we're bringing in, and should we even be bringing people in, and all that kind of. But anyways, aside from that, when you run that, you always have to present your best foot forward. And I feel like then a lot gets lost because I think when somebody's giving me a sales pitch, if you tell me everything you're doing good, to me that helps me nothing. The reason you're doing a sales pitch is I assume you're doing something good. That's why you're here. Give me some honesty. Because otherwise I'm like, you're hiding too much. And so then with Family Central, like I struggle sometimes because I'm like, man, like, yeah, you want to give out the good stats. This is what we're doing. But there are some people who really just don't want help. And there's cases where, after 3-4 years of investing in someone, they're just like, no, we're good. I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to change. And so so it was just interesting. And so then I think to the church too, and I feel like something that, and it's Earl McManus who said it, but I'm sure others have said it, but they're like, people don't connect with the things that you did well. They connect with the areas that you fail. Because most people have failed, but not everybody has succeeded. Right. And we all have some successes, but if we sit here and say, this business was successful. Yeah, some people have had that, but that becomes small. And if we go, no, I fail with insecurity. Well, everybody gets that. I fail, I got mad at my spouse. Okay, well now you know what I mean? So I feel like you lose a lot of connection with that. And specifically what got me thinking was, so last Sunday, got lots of compliments on the sermon.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a words of,
again,
so this is the community service.
Last Sunday, the community service. I was going to fill in the blanks just to prevent.
That's why you're here today. You're just helping people understand what is Albert actually saying.
I say at the community service, the heritage.
Lots of good things. And then this Sunday, the service gets to the end, and it's interesting. I always go, why does my brain so desperately crave somebody telling me you did okay?
Yeah, somebody to walk up and say, hey, I appreciate that.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, how many more years of, because you just show up, and I don't expect that from people. I don't even want it. If the same person every Sunday is like, your sermon was amazing. No, it can't be amazing every Sunday. There's no possible way. It's just not. And so it was just, I was thinking about it a lot yesterday again. I was like, it's interesting how quickly the dark side of your personality, or not the I'm a failure thing, comes out. Yeah. I don't know if that was good enough. Like my nieces both got baptized. Was that a good enough service for them? Like it's such a strange thing to have those thoughts.
And the people that are there visiting,
right,
to support them.
Yeah, did I explain it well enough? Did we do this well enough?
Did they get it?
Right. Yeah. Was this good enough?
Were they
that
greeted the way they should have been? Were they all those things? Was the coffee fresh enough for them? Was it?
Right.
Well, you start wondering. Like
100%.
It does go to there.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So
failures.
That's where we kind of got. But I want to start with first. What excites you right now?
What excites me right now?
If you're thinking as a person, what excites you when you think about looking forward? Like, what are you like? Man, I'm excited about blank. What do you got? I love surprising you with questions. It's one of my highlights.
What am I looking forward to?
What excites you? Like when you wake up and you're like, man, I can't wait to do this. What are some thoughts?
I don't know. Things that pop into my brain are like, today I was excited. Like just waking up this morning, I was excited about baseball tryouts tonight. I know it's crazy, but I'm excited in the way like, man, there's going to be a whole bunch of kids from a whole bunch of different areas within our community. Some are known to me, some are not known to me. So I'm going to meet new kids, new parents. It's new opportunities. It could be, potentially new connections, new friendships, and that kind of gets me like amped up where I'm like, okay, what? And then my brain, the last couple of days has been like, man, we need to get the MAC out. Like I'm like, I think this can happen. Like this is something, and I just keep coming back to, I think, God said do this, and I feel like, all right, you assign the vision, so that means you've assigned everything else. All right, well then I just need to we just need to go. So that excites me. I don't know. I'm excited on Sundays when I show up and I get to see all the faces that walk through the doors and all the new people, and that excites me. And I'm like, okay, well, what's God doing here? Like, where are we going? And some of the conversation that we had Sunday morning, that excites me, and the way people are thinking about how we can connect with people at the church, and that gets me excited. Right. And just what God's doing in our community as a whole, in terms of in the churches and in kind of like a love your neighbor kind of like perspective. There's a lot of cool things that are happening, and that excites me. There's a diversity of people that are moving into the Elmer community. Mm-hmm. That excites me. Like I've always had connections with Southeast Asian people. Like I've always had that. I grew up across the street from somebody from India, and he was always at my house. And seeing that culture move into Elmer, that excites me, because I'm always like, I always connect with it. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like a vibe that I can always like have a conversation, and it's like immediate connection. I'm like, that excites me. I'm like, that's really cool. There's opportunities, to be able to make new friends and see what God wants to have happen from that. But I don't know. Those are some of the things that off the top of my brain, get me excited. I don't know. There's just
that's good. I love
there's
it.
a lot. Like I don't know. I typically don't look at life as being, the glass is half empty. Right. I always look at it as overflowing. Right. Like it's just, there's a lot that could be. I don't know. That excites me.
Fantastic. All right.
What about you? What excites you? And this is unfair because I don't get to like thrust this upon you as you did to me, but and now you've had 3-4 minutes to think about specifics, and you probably already had one planned, which is why you wanted to ask me.
No, you know what? I think from a very like just a little personal level, like I'm excited about the season that we're in. Mm-hmm. I get really excited about the possibilities when...
You mean fall? Is that what you're saying? The season we're in the fall?
Season of church. Okay. But fall too. Like, because again, summer is awesome in terms of my personal life. But fall is where everything kind of kicks back in. Everybody gets back into routine. And we're like, all right. And you're building up towards Christmas, which is always, to me, I love it. But I kind of wish Easter had the same feel. Because I feel like from a Christian standpoint, like I feel like Easter is that moment.
Right.
But from the way our calendar is developed, the way everything is developed, really Christmas is that key thing. But yeah, like there's a lot of exciting things. I think there's, from a personal standpoint, I am loving how much I'm learning lately. And so I don't know why, Patrick. This is
you've been doing
something that an
exceptional amount of reading.
I know.
And audiobooks.
And there are people who think I never read.
And I think that needs to be pointed out, you know?
So I think one of the things I learned from... it might have been Matt Chandler. It might have been who knows who. Somebody. I listened to a podcast a while ago, and they said the way they read books was they'd get the audiobook, they'd read it at 1.5, but then they would have the physical book there, and then they'd underline the things so they wouldn't forget. And that was always my problem. If I just read, my brain wanders. I really struggle. Like I have to work hard to focus. But then with this, I was like, oh man, like this has been really, really helpful. And so I've been able to focus because I'm listening to it, but I'm also underlining. And so then you can go back and go, okay, well, here are the things that matter. The one thing he did on top of that was he would create a Cole's notes at the end. Here's the things that stood out in this book. Here's the things I want to apply. So I thought that was cool. And I have no idea who the guy was. It wasn't Matt Chandler. But anyways, there was a podcast like that. So that's been good. When I'm in seasons where I feel like I'm learning, because I feel like as a leader, if I'm not in a season where I'm really growing, I sometimes struggle to go, then why am I leading? Like I can't lead people if I haven't gone anywhere. Right. And so that's one of those fears, but you can't endlessly be learning because you have to learn how to apply what you're learning. And so then you go through seasons where you're like, I've got new information, I've got new perspective, I've got new understanding. That's good.
Yeah, you can't follow a parked car.
No. Yeah. Amen to that.
You can't.
Right? You can if you just hit them really hard. I've seen YouTube videos of bicycles trying to do that. But yeah, like I think that's been one of those things that's kind of like you get excited. You know, okay, we're learning some things. I'm excited about some of the decisions the boards are making. I'm loving our church board, our little preaching team that we're developing between me, you, Will, and Randy. Like some of the conversations we're having there, and some of the honesty and the feedback, and just that connection. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that excites me. So, okay, let's go back to what are you finding difficult right now?
What am I finding difficult right now? That's a great question.
I want this in the sense of don't give me a church answer.
Oh.
You have a job. I know your job is church, and so we can really quickly go back to church.
Nah, what am I finding difficult right now? I was driving down the John Street heading towards Elmer the other day, and it's probably 2-3 weeks ago now, and I looked at the top of the trees, and I could see that the color was starting to change. And I feel like I'm in that season of my life where my treetop is changing colors.
You're shutting me up here. Like I can't even help. Your treetop is also thinning.
Yeah, it's also thinning, and that happens too this time of year, right? So, no, but like in terms of like what am I finding difficult? I think
I know what you mean.
I think the valuation that you place on time and the understanding of how limited it is. And I'm not guaranteed to 70, 75, 80, 85. Like look at my dad, he's 85.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not guaranteed 35 more years. Right. Like I'm not really even guaranteed tomorrow. Yeah. So like just thinking about the shortness of life. And sometimes it's difficult thinking, I got stuff I want to see happen, man. Right. And then being not patient. I don't know if that's the right word, but being okay with things unfolding as they need to for things to come together. Right. I find that difficult. I find feeling value as a dad difficult some days. I think, the like I have loved being a dad. Like it's a miracle. Like it's awesome that I have two beautiful boys, and I'm so thankful for Juanita, that we can have a family. And I find it difficult as I've poured in tons of time connecting with them through play and listening and just spending time with them. And I was telling Jasper this the other day, like, I've played with you way more than Grandpa ever played with me. Mm-hmm. Like, by far. It's not even close. But then knowing that, there's things at the house that aren't done that need to be done, right. Because, they should be done for Juanita. And, it needs to be done for whatever's coming to be prepared for the next phase of life.
Right.
Stuff like that needs to happen. And I find that difficult in managing that properly, and being okay with it not happening. Like, I find it difficult meeting expectations that I either think I should place on myself or are placed on me, or are not placed on me and they should be. Right. I find that really difficult. I really do. It's hard to emphasize every aspect of life at the same time.
Right.
And being okay with what you're emphasizing when you're in it. When I'm playing catcher, when I'm playing a board game with Ryder, I don't need to be thinking about organizing my shop.
Right.
I just need to be with him in that moment and being like, you know what, that was worth it.
Right.
But whatever, like being okay with that. Right. I don't know. Yourself? What are you finding difficult? I don't know if that's what you're looking for. I guess that's not a catchy answer. But I mean, there's a bunch. Like I can make a list of. I feel like as I've gotten older, I feel like I'm way more critical of myself. Like I feel like I should be like better at that by the time I got to this age. Like
that I can.
I feel like that's a difficult thing. I feel like, man,
how am I still failing at that? What in the world?
I thought I would be way better at communicating. Yeah. Like I thought I'd be way better at conveying my emotions. I look at my boys and I'm like, I haven't told enough of a story to them for them to understand why I love coming to church. Like I know why I come here. Yeah. I know what I would have been without it. Yeah. I know the place that God found me in. I know but I find it difficult thinking like, man, I need to make sure they grasp that.
Right.
Like, and that's difficult. Right. Like, because what have I missed?
Right.
Have I missed? Right. Like, there's a bunch. Like, and then that just dives into failures. So, anyway,
I think the biggest.
Can I change the subject before I get too emotional?
No, it's good. I like it.
That's
clickbait,
No, I don't want clickbait.
Crying again.
No more tears.
No, I think the one thing that has caught me off guard over the last couple of years has been how much of an effect fear has had on me at this age. Right? Like I've been trying to figure out if fear is the right word, but I think a lot of people had for their own lives, like you had big goals and big dreams. Mm-hmm. My entire life growing up until I was 21 was wrapped around a policing career. That was it. Like I even for like family, like some guys grew up I didn't have dreams of family. I didn't have dreams of kids. None of those things. I don't know why. Like it's not a negative. It's not a positive. It's just nothing I ever thought of. My future was wrapped up in what I was going to with policing. I was thrilled to death about that life. And so when that got stripped away, I really didn't have a foundation to go, this is what I'm hoping my life will accomplish. So I couldn't be afraid of failing because I didn't even know what I was doing. And so it was one of those where it was like, okay, well, we're just going to jump day to day. And like, I don't know. People are like, well, how'd you get through the first couple of years? Well, I was in a job where I didn't want to be and didn't know I was going to be. God just seemed to call me there. And so then I went and away we went. And then you fast forward now, we're 16 years in. And now all of a sudden the fear becomes, but what if we screw this up? Like, I remember what it was like when, the church was packed as a young kid. I didn't understand what happened. I didn't understand all the stuff that went in between, but all of a sudden it wasn't. And then by the time you get to being older, like you're going through pastor turnover, and I'm like, I don't know what that's all about. Like, again, you're a kid, you don't get it. But then at some point, like, we had family that was deeply hurt at the church and left and moved away. And you have all these scars. And so then all of a sudden now you carry this weight where it used to just be like, I get to show up and I get to go to work. Now I still love this job, but I feel like there's such a burden and terror that you feel. And a lot of it is probably a healthy respect for understanding the value and the need for the church, not just Mount Salem, but just in general. I think as I've gotten older, like when you were younger, you were just excited about it. And you're like, oh man, maybe we can become a big church and maybe we can, but you don't get the globalness of what the church has done. And you don't grasp, like in these moments of when culture goes chaotic, the impact of what church can be. But now all of a sudden you get that. And then people start going, well, both of us are well known in Elmer, not in the sense of fame or anything, just we've been here a long time.
Infamous.
Well, more less famous. But like all of a sudden you start feeling a weight that you're like, there are people actually watching. And there are people watching our lives and what we do matters. And then you start going, shoot, well, I hope I don't screw up my marriage. And I hope I've raised my kids well enough. And so I feel like a lot of that fear of constantly trying to not feel like everything depends on me. Mm-hmm. And the elders have never put it like that. I don't have a church that operates like that. Like this is all just my own personal battle of. And so then you get to the end of a Sunday and you're like, did I do enough? Did we organize enough? Did we this? I used to never have that because I knew we didn't. We were small. We were scrambling. We didn't know what we were doing. And so I think there's some maturing. I think there's a bit of mid-age stuff where it's like there's an urgency. The boys are getting older to moving out. Like I know some of our adopted kids have moved out, but they were older when they moved in. So there's not quite the same, like we're really changing stages. Now that my oldest is in grade 11, like I'm really starting to feel it, like, holy smokes, like, man, we're almost done that piece. And so there's a lot of that stuff that in whether it's mid-age, it certainly isn't a crisis by any stretch. Like I don't like that term anyway, but I feel like that has been a big thing now. You start looking backwards and you go, man, did I do this right? I can't change it now. And when I have those thoughts and they're useful in the sense of like, how do we learn from the past? Love it. But a lot of times it's just basic fear that creeps in and you're like, I'm going to fail and this is going to fail and this is going to fall apart. And my kids are going to have to tell the same story that, I had to tell from a church. I don't want that for my kids.
Oof. Yeah.
Right. Like
that's hard, man. Like I think about like the change that has happened. Like I just thinking about Trevor's sound booth, he's monopolized the entire back of the church. And I remember when I first started coming here, it was like a 8x8 structure with, the yellow oak finish. The soundboard had like 8 sliders on it or 6 or something. Like it was small, and like there was a guy back there on the computer and the guy on the sound, but they could do both if you needed to on a Sunday. Like it was, and now there's 4 people at the back. There's a soundboard, which I sometimes have to call Trevor to figure out how to turn off and on, so I can be reminded. I called him the other day because I couldn't figure out how to take the mute off, and like it was hilarious. And he's trying to tell me, and he's like, "Can you just put it on like FaceTime? Can we go to camera, and then I'll show you what I mean?" And I'm like, but like the
massive changes,
the massive changes that you can see through just one area of ministry, one point of connection,
right?
Like it is different.
Right.
Like it's not the same,
right.
And that is complicated, and it can be hard, and it does cause you to consider differently in your preparation, in your dialogue, right. in your effort to think and vision, and
right.
And that's difficult because then that's a whole different amount of thinking,
right. Okay, so let's jump into kind of the church end. I want to talk about some of that. Like, as we grow, as with any business or any family or any structure, the bigger it gets, the more your weaknesses begin to be revealed. And so this isn't a quick question being like, what's wrong with the church? But what are we finding? And I want to talk about that, like, because we've had some great conversations, like yesterday morning too, like you said, yesterday was Sunday morning. We had a meeting before church, and we had a really cool cross section of people. So we had somebody who was single, an adult, somebody who married into the church, and somebody who grew up in this church, but then left for a long time, but then came back and has kids. And so it was like a wild, unplanned cross section of opinions of what it feels like to walk into this church.
Yeah.
Probably one of the neater conversations, just in terms of, because these are gems, like they're really good leaders. Like it's not like people were just like, listen, let me give you the complaints. But it was like, no, here's, and trying to come up with solutions and some of that. So that was really neat. But what are some of the things that we're seeing as a church that we're working with staff? What are we seeing as failures? What are we seeing as weaknesses? And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, and kind of just go behind the scenes a little bit and go, what are the things that we're struggling to navigate? And if you need to think, I got a list.
Wow. I think we do a really good job of welcoming people at the door. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a very poor track record of connecting people to further depth of what the church is as they visit. Mm-hmm. And we, in terms of new people, connections and retentions, and we're just not great at it. And there's
I want to qualify that a little bit, because it's been intriguing this year. I would have agreed with you, but it feels like not everybody does, because a lot of our testimonies were like, no, we felt really welcomed. We know lots didn't. And so it's been one of those things that's been a little bit intriguing, because I think what you're dealing with is people come in with very different expectations. Yeah. And so depending on what you expected, what you experienced. So when you talk about the failures, and we've had this conversation, what specifically are you feeling like we don't do well? Or what are we hearing from people when they come in? I don't feel connected because.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with how we connect them to the information of what the structures of the church are.
Right.
I think that is I understand, we have never wanted to be the place where you walk in and it's like everybody's on you as a visitor.
Right. We're not that community.
You wear the flag on your on your hat that tells everybody that you're a visitor, and everybody make sure you go shake that person's hand, and there's all sorts of things with that we find problematic. Sure. As someone looking for a new church, it's not like you want to make them feel uncomfortable with the dramatic amount of attention that's given to them when they walk in the door. Right. When what they just want to do is come in and see what a normal service is like. Right. They want to feel like what it'd be like if they were just there on a normal, regular Sunday morning without them being the newbie.
Well, I think part of what happened in terms of communication, because I want to zoom in on that a little bit. Before COVID, paper bulletins would have been in every church. That's the way you would communicate most things. Emails maybe. I don't remember.
Was there email before COVID?
Or their computers even? No. So before COVID, you would come in, you get a bulletin, it's got the pastor's names, it's got their emails, it's got everything. During COVID, everything went digital. And I think what happened was you threw out what was working before the new had actually been designed well. So what I mean by that is the bulletin gave you everything. Now you have a website, you have an e-bulletin, you have some of those things, but our process to get people into those things has not been good. Our ability to keep updated on the website, we have failed pretty significantly. Our social media, when you think about who we hire and how we hire, we're not really great at some of this. And so that process, and I don't think it was ever intentional. It was never we were okay, let's get just rid of paper bulletins. They're the problem. But everything shifted so so quickly. And then now all of a sudden you're and we also before COVID, we were growing as a church, not this rapidly. We did massive growth in terms of not just people coming from other churches, but people who aren't of faith and people who are new to faith. And you have this unique cross section that our process is just legit we're not in place for. And so then when you talk to people, some people are man, it was exactly what I needed. And then other people are it was not at all. But a lot of it could really be at the very beginning, that process of, hey, I like this place. How do I get connected? has been really challenging. And we're a church with young kids. And so then you're like, okay, well, some of the normal things don't. Like there was a lot of those things that, but I feel like COVID really shifted that. And we've struggled to know how to do some of these things. And then if we're being honest, I think some of the, I don't know how to do it has left us in a place where then you just don't do it.
Yeah. I think that's a failure as well.
But 100%.
Yeah. The whole connections thing and how to do it well. Yeah, definitely a failure. I think stuff like this we don't do well either.
Like what?
Being vocal about where we're failing.
Oh, no, I know.
No, like, and
I know. That's why we wanted to do this today. I was this is hard. I don't like this.
I think not telling on yourself also leaves people thinking that you are thinking that you got it right.
Yeah.
When we've had many conversations that we know we don't have it right.
Well, and so here's part of the problem. So for most people listening here, you don't have a clue what a pastor does because it's such a weird job. But it's one of those jobs where you can be busy 96 hours a week. Easy, if that's what you wanted. But the problem then becomes if there are things that you are really not good at, there isn't a clear defined accountability as to like, you have to get these things done because every week is so different. And so like, I thought when I think outside of this, I just thought of Michael Dyke the one day because I showed up and he was getting ready for the fall. And I'm like, how do you keep track of everything? Like, how do you keep track of everything that you make sure that you put everything away in time, and that you make sure that you plant in time, and that you do this in time? Like, it's a massive thing. And I think a lot of businesses struggle the same way that we've done with some of this, where what you end up doing then is there's some things that get missed, but usually things that get missed are the things that you're just not really good at, or you just don't completely know how to do. So it's not that you're not working crazy hard. The things that you don't necessarily know how to do. In a business, you can just hire someone, right? Because there's money involved. As a church, it's a little bit more of a challenge. And then the skill set here is really unique.
Well, I wonder if our lack of telling on ourselves has also contributed to the problem, in the sense of, like, from a church environment and from what we know what the scriptures say, that the body is there, like the complete body of who we're supposed to be. And if we haven't really vocalized our need for support in certain areas, then those that are either gifted or inclined or have don't feel the need to exercise themselves in what they're good at or capable of or could be capable of. And then they just kind of have left it. Like, we've left it, but it's just, I think that's possible. I don't know if that's the totality. I don't, but I definitely think there's areas where, I mean, we've always found that as we've grown and as we've developed different teams, all of a sudden something pops up and you're like, oh, that was already here. We didn't know. Yeah. Like, we didn't realize that we had those giftings that were present, or maybe we did, but they were never realized because we never opened the doorway.
There's a weight that you also feel as staff. And I think Essie mentioned this the other day, like with volunteers, like you feel, because I'm getting paid, I don't want to make you work. And so then it's like, okay, well, how do I make your job the easiest possible? Which I think the heartbeat there was good. And I certainly think that, you know, when you look at just our church history, so just back the train up just a little bit, we shifted drastically from being congregationally led, which meant every decision had to go through the congregation. That's what that means. Like, when I say that, I'm not saying the congregation isn't really, at the end of the day, the congregation still leads the church. We set the vision, but nobody follows. Like, so it's a one team. But it used to be like, if you wanted to have a new color or something, like it goes through a whole vote. There's a whole process, everything. So when we shifted from that to the board, the church never fully figured out how to do that really well. We tried a bunch of things, and a big part of it was that while Gerhardt did the heavy lifting of getting us to being a board-run church, the next guy they hired was me. And at 25, with no organizational leadership skills, like I'd never run an organization, and we were small enough that we weren't really a big organization.
You weren't an organization.
We were a small little corner store at that point. And so then you don't put some of those structures in place because you're like, I don't really know. I don't know how to do some of that stuff. And then the church begins to grow and we took on some new staff and you do some of the generic things that everybody does. You hire this pastor, that pastor. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and COVID rocketed the church forward like 100 years. Like when you look across the board, not Mount Salem, across the board, the church is traditionally like 20 years behind culture in terms of technology, in terms of trying new things. Like we just kind of get locked into our own thing and this is what the church does. Now, all of a sudden, in a matter of like 2-3 years, everything shifted. We are live streaming. You're trying to impact culture in ways that churches never thought they needed to. There was no pressure beforehand. I promise you, nobody was ever like, Albert, I think you need to voice your opinion on what's happening in Elmer. Nobody would have ever said that. Like it didn't happen. And now all of a sudden, post-COVID, you have a whole new expectation of the church, and so there's a lot of those things that we're kind of like, okay, but like we can go back to just the way we used to do it, but we don't really know. You look at the statistics on not just people in our church, but in general, people are struggling to connect. So it's not like there's a generic thing. Like I think sometimes people look at some of these problems, they go, well, I didn't really fit in the church. There is no blanket. There's no organization right now that's going, we've nailed it. We know exactly. You go to any volunteer club, they're struggling. You go to any of these, the Optimists, the Kinsmen, all these that used to be like homegrown, this is a privilege to be a part of. Their numbers are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so there's more to it. And that's where, there's a bit of fear, but then there's also a bit of like, you run out of hours where you're like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know how to make everyone feel welcomed. I don't know how to. And I think the problem that me and you, I think, have faced with some of this is we don't really know which model to even lean on. Like, where do you go? Because what we're experiencing is a bit unique. Like, if you were to actually, like, even when we were doing some research in terms of what, other churches are, to be this rural in a county that really isn't growing and have a growing church and have the diversity that we have within our church.
And to be, in many ways, a non-traditional church.
Right.
Like you can't lean on some of the traditional structures that would have driven growth or solidified, because it's not who we've been,
right?
And that does matter. We had this conversation in LA, like when we were out there at a conference, and we were like, well, how does that work in Mount Salem?
Right?
Can it work in Mount Salem?
Right?
Because it's not LA. It's not this area of LA. It's not this type of people. It's not there's so many different factors.
Right. So when you walk into our church, you get more of a, there's a lot of different types of people. There's people who still wear head coverings. There's people who would never wear anything but shorts and a t-shirt to church. There's people so from a traditional sense, like most churches when you walk into, here's kind of the dress code. Here's kind of, and I don't know why God has opened the doors the way he has to it. I love it, but I don't know why, but that does make it a little more challenging. Like if you were to walk into most other churches, there's a certain very defined ethos of, oh, if I'm going to go to this church, I kind of got to be like this.
Yeah, there's a vibe.
Right.
You're gonna catch up on it, pretty much right away.
100%. And so then when you're here, so I think there are some of those uniquenesses. But having said all of that, we need to do better on a newcomer packet is one of the things we need to do. Helping people go, okay, listen, this is who we actually are. This is the conference we belong to. This is how you do some of the basic things. And but to me, it's one of those things that until people start pointing it out, I just forget. Like with baseball too, so we do these tryouts. I forget how lost you felt when your child was in their first year and how you're like, I don't even know what this means. Like, what does 9U rep tryouts mean? I don't know what that means. Whereas now, when I'm creating the posts and I'm creating the stuff saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, I make a lot of assumptions. And I feel like that's been one of the things that's been pointed out is that we've assumed people know stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't. They don't know. And so definitely do that better. What's another thing that you feel like, man, I don't know if we've done that well?
I think being more open about who we are.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
In a sense of like, or be more open about what our expectation of our faith community is. I don't know. I don't really, like we've talked about the church and like, believing in the church, don't believe like, and I don't mean like not believing that the church is like part of what scriptures talk about, but like actually the church being the church.
Right.
And, I think we've had a lot of open dialogue, but we really haven't opened the dialogue in a sense. I don't know if we do that well. I think we're behind. Behind in some aspects of what it means to have what our church's version of what a deacon should be. Mm-hmm. I would say that's behind.
Well, we had a crazy, when you think of the deacon ministry, we've had like 2 funerals since I got here of people who were actually from our church. Like we've hosted some funerals, we've been involved in some funerals, but it really has been a wild stretch. And so I look at some of those ministries and we talk about deacon ministry and I'm like, how do we not have that? Well, we just, for whatever reason, like people were healthy and we didn't have some of that. And it was awesome. But as we're moving forward and we're aging,
there's aspects of it where you look at it and you go, okay, so how are we doing it? In what way are we doing it? Do we want to set structures in place that how do you have something functioning as part of the church body in a way that is, I think, the way Scripture properly wanted it to be done?
Yep.
Not like the deacons are responsible for the care. They are the ones who care in the church.
Right.
Well, that's not scriptural.
Right.
I'm supposed to love my neighbor.
Yeah.
We're all supposed to love one another.
Right.
Well, that means there's function that comes with that definition. You literally can't have one without the other.
Right.
So it's the same thing of like, you hire a pastor, well, the pastor will do everything. No.
That's not how it's supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be that way. Right. So how do you implement something where individuals within the body have very specific, unique giftings that are more inclined to those parts of what care is, without becoming it eliminating everybody's responsibility to care?
Right. So
because we're all called to be light, right? And be a witness.
Right.
So the pastor isn't the he's not the only person who's supposed to tell people about Jesus.
Right. But churches were created that way. Like a lot of churches in the last 20, 30 years, they function in the sense of the pastor and a few committees and everybody else just attends. And we're really trying to go, no, that's not actually biblical. And
right. We don't want to cheer on, yay, our pastor is like, no.
Yep.
No, that's not at all. Like
we are supposed to equip and encourage.
Right.
And then the church as a whole does all the good works that God created us to do.
It's supposed to be like in the process, it's supposed to be the few are actually equipping and empowering the many,
right.
Not the many are equipping the few.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. Right. Like that's not how you effectively impact your world.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things
that's challenging, and some of that's
what are we doing for time? We got to be getting close here, hey?
Yeah, 43. Some of that could be viewed as a cop out, and maybe like in terms of like failure difficulty, that's difficult. So it does provide you with an avenue where you can drag your feet a little bit, and because of some of those things, it doesn't make the foot dragging right, but that'd be failure, like because you have a very good reason as to why.
Okay. Well, and again, they talk lots about indecision. Being one of the like worst things you can do as a leader, and there's some of these areas where we just have not been decisive enough. And I would argue there's some of these areas where you haven't held me accountable enough, and I haven't held you accountable enough. Like some of this basic stuff was like, no, like if you look back at the notes, some of this stuff we've been talking about for 2-3 years, right? And so again, it's not a matter of you aren't working enough. No, it's just then you go back to I still don't know what to do with that, so I'm just going to leave it. But that has consequences, right? I think one of the other things, and I think kind of I don't know if this will be the last one, but one of my struggles is figuring out who to be for this newer church. And so when we were smaller, it was also that I was 25. No one expected squat of me. Like they really didn't. A lot of the older people were so gentle, so good. There was like no one was. And so now it's like, okay, well, how do you... When I go to a church, I love knowing the pastor. Like anytime we've gone to other churches, I want to know the pastor. And I think a lot of people feel like that. I'm in a stage where I've got 4 grandkids. I've got 7 kids. I've got both sets of parents living. I've got, a stage of life that's really busy and it's hard. And I can only give away so many evenings at this point unless I want to lose my kids. And so then you go, well, how do you help people still feel loved and seen by the church when a lot of people would view being loved and seen by the church by the actions of the pastor? And I don't know if people would necessarily articulate that, but there is something people are like, well, the pastor didn't even show up when I was in the hospital, or the pastor didn't show up when I was here. And I lament with that. Like, I don't say that in the sense of they should never feel that.
Or the pastor didn't show up at my kid's birthday party, or he didn't show up at, like, that list
huge.
Is long, depending on what tradition and culture you have within your church.
Right.
If the pastor's not there, then what did I do wrong?
Right.
Or why wasn't he there? Like, the people interpret that as they don't have value or meaning.
Absolutely.
Because the pastor wasn't there.
And that's been hard because I think the meaning behind it is authentic. They want to know the leaders of the church, and there is something about it. If I were in the hospital, there are a few people that I would want to be there, and some of them are some of my former pastors. So I get that. Like,
I don't want to diminish, but there's also that aspect to the culture that you create, or the understanding of the individual,
right,
of exactly, value, place, purpose, meaning, right, season, family. Like, there's so many aspects that need to be considered when we're having that conversation.
Right.
And
so I think that's been one of those things that's been hard on me. I've said this a few times, and I don't like that I say it, but I say it anyway. I try to disappoint people equally, because I feel like I disappoint my parents and my in-laws. I disappoint most of my family in terms of, I wouldn't have enough time. And I would agree, like, those 24 hours a day, they just disappear really fast. And in the church, there's a part of that where you go, but I do have some people that I spend more time with. I have friends. I do have, and so then sometimes you wrestle with that, but I lament some of that. I do. I wish that every time somebody was in the hospital, I could go. And I wish every time somebody died, I could be there. I enjoy that. I think that's actually something I'm fairly good at. I respond well in those moments. But then as the church grows, you're like, yeah, but I can't, I can't be everywhere. And so that's been a challenge where it's like, I think I've hurt some people and I don't mean to, and I just don't know how to, I don't know if I would consider that a failure more than just a real big challenge of sometimes I make decisions and I'm like, well, was that the right decision? And then you start second guessing. But the heart behind it is like, we love our people. I love this church.
Well, there's almost a built-in flaw with not us, but how all those things can work together. Like, it's just, there's no way to, like, when we purposefully take a day off, because usually we don't, not in that sense, but because of how we work our schedules and because how we try to balance work life. But then when we do, and then people want your time, but you're right in the middle of sitting down to have a conversation with your son that you haven't purposed in 3 weeks to have that conversation.
Right.
But you see the notification and you're like, it's hard.
Yeah.
Because you know that person really needs to connect.
Right.
But at the same time, you got a decision to make. Like, and some of those things are hard.
Yeah.
And for sure, I think communicating where some of our failures in expectations are going to be, so that people understand when they happen,
right,
is something that would be, I think, advantageous.
And I think finding, I'm going to speak on this over the next couple of weeks. I don't know if it'll be this Sunday or exactly when we go into it, but creating a culture where people can articulate some of that so that the other person can respond. And I don't mean just like people coming to us and saying, hey, what about this? But I mean, just in general, creating a, why didn't you show up here? Or why didn't you do this? Or why isn't this ministry relaunching and that one relaunching? Or why is there a staff available at this ministry? Not, some of those, I wish there was, because that also speaks to the broader context of there's some conversations that we wish we could have, but we can't because they would divide. And so you really struggle with some of that. I'm going, well, How do we talk about Palestine or Charlie Kirk or politics or abortion or sexuality? Like, how do we have those conversations, and where, and how do you do it in the context of a church? Is there's a lot of that, because a lot of this is just people just don't talk. Like, a lot of, honestly, the bitterness that would ever come against the church, a lot of that seed is just, you just quietly get offended. And then that quiet offense turns into something. And you had a legit reason to be offended. It wasn't like we're, but it was that seed grows. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm just leaving the church. And you're like, well, that's not how we want this to go. But anyways, having said all that, man, I appreciate this, Patrick. And I don't know if people find use out of it, but I think trying to be real in the sense that, I mean, we're trying really hard, but there isn't a real black and white, clear, this is the map. If you follow this, people are complex. We're not perfect. Yeah, we have our own issues and struggles and fears and doubts.
I would say one of the things that I think has been at the core, or some of the foundational things about this that can happen, is that we've always tried to see the best in what the other person is saying. Mm-hmm. And we've always given ground that a statement isn't definitive.
Right.
Like, a statement can actually be explorative.
Right.
This is where I'm at. I'm just going to tell you, oh, well, if you're there, then you're evil. No. How about I'm telling you where I'm at in my current algorithm of thinking, right, and I'm asking you to, have some say into it. Right. And then if you have some good say, you can actually move me to a better, right, or a higher, right, algorithm, yep, of thinking. Yep. But that doesn't happen unless we give each other the ability to talk. Right. And to do so in a way that I'm not going to walk away thinking, oh, that person. I'm actually going to walk away and I'm going to be like, well, I can see that person has thought about it. Right. And they've considered. And okay, I can understand their perspective. I think that's helped. Yep. Anyway.
Yeah, it's been good. Hey, thanks for listening.
Thanks for the conversation. Yeah. I've enjoyed it.
It's been good.
I really have.
If you enjoyed, if you got questions, shoot them to us. We don't really try to send this podcast anywhere other than to our church community. So.
Or come by.
Yeah, come by.
Come by. Yeah. We like good coffee. Trevor tries to help us with that, but his process is pretty long. But
hey, enjoy your week, guys.